Well, okay, let's get started. And good morning to the second day of the Linux Foundation's Collaboration Summit. This here is the automotive track. And I'm Rudy Strive. I'm the Director of Embedded Solutions for the Linux Foundation. And I'm also leading the Linux Foundation's Automotive Grade Linux collaboration project. And I'm going to give an overview of the state of the union, where we stand with Automotive Grade Linux. Automotive Grade Linux is one of the Linux Foundation's collaboration projects. We have quite a few of those. And the idea of these projects is really bring interested parties together and collaborate on common issues or common features, projects, and move the adoption of Linux forward. So we started Automotive Grade Linux last year in September. We launched it at the Automotive Linux Summit in Gaydon in the UK. And at launch, this was our membership. We had our inaugural steering committee meeting there with 16 companies who were interested in joining Automotive Grade Linux, become a member of the steering committee, and drive the adoption of Linux in the automotive industry. Today, we have added quite a few more members. Now we're about 26, and it's really every month or so we're adding 2, maybe 3 more members to it. And it's a broad range of companies from the automotive industry, OEMs, tier 1s, as well as from semiconductor industry and telecommunications and information technology industries. And the thought really of Automotive Grade Linux is not just for systems inside of a car, but of course everyone is talking about the connected car, connecting the car to the cloud. That also includes a lot of cloud services and technology that is necessary to make this happen. And so the vision of Automotive Grade Linux is not just having systems in the car, but also extend to infrastructure. Our mission here is really enable the automotive industry to successfully utilize Linux and open source technologies for product development with an open collaboration on items that everyone really needs to be able to successfully develop or to deploy products inside of a car. Collaborate on the non-differentiating items, drive forward some of the technologies, future technologies that are interesting for the automotive industry, and that can be what Ethernet AVB to network systems inside of a car, can be a vehicle-to-vehicle, vehicle-to-infrastructure communication stacks, and many other things. And we'll also really provide processes to do so, a reference software and hardware that gets engineers of the industry easily started. And if you have been to Matt Jones's keynote yesterday morning, he was talking about this survey that Geneva actually conducted, looking for what are people looking for what is their major problem essentially when they're trying to adopt Linux and open source. And one of the major problems is really there is nothing you can go to. There's no distribution, so to say, for automotive or even for embedded Linux. If you want to use Linux and open source on a PC, well, then you have a broad choice of distributions you go to. You download it within 20 minutes or half an hour. You're up and running. And this is also so it's one of the goals really also of Automotive Grade Linux to be such an enabler to provide these distributions and other things. And also complement that with education and best practices on open source. So these are kind of the major staples, so to say, of the deliverables of Automotive Grade Linux. I reference hardware and software. We don't build the hardware. Well, we just select the hardware. Although one of the membership companies of Automotive Grade Linux did build a hardware that has some typical automotive components on there. They did that it was commissioned by Toyota. And it's a hardware that actually provides Intel x86 architecture as well as ARM-based architecture. So systems with different CPU platforms. So we have reference hardware that are Intel-based, as well as the ports going on now to ARM-based hardware, such as the Panda board, and also Freescale IMX6-based platform. The demonstrator we'll be talking about runs on a Nexcom hardware that uses an Intel Sandy Bridge chipset. Really, the idea is also to have a download, really be able to download and software and go, put it on the hardware and run with it and make it really that 20 minutes from downloading, you image your system and then you have a system up and running. And we've been working intensively on that during the last couple of weeks, and the first product of that is that demonstrator that we will be showing in detail later. Another important part, of course, is processes and tools. So, okay, you have an image, a distribution that you download, you put it on your system, but you don't necessarily know how to build it. And it's not like that there's not one size fits it all. Once you want to go into an embedded system, into automotive deployment, you need to be able to build your system essentially from scratch. And you also need to be able to modify and to customize your system so that it fits your particular needs as well as your particular hardware. So one focus of automotive-grade Linux is also build systems. Of course, collaboration, source code management, eventually automatic testing, QA, and also establish some best practices. One thing is with the industry is, like any industries, there's quite a learning curve in how to get involved with open source software, and it's kind of really a three-step process. The first step is really you use open source software, you use Linux, and you utilize it, you build something with it. And then the next step would be eventually you want to be able to directly collaborate in those open source projects, because in the course of your development, your adoption, you have maybe made some changes to the source code of some of the projects to better fit your needs, and you think, oh yeah, well, eventually what I did there is actually also very useful for other people who want to contribute back, which is kind of the next level. Working in open source projects and contributing back to that project, and also make sure that what you have written, what you have provided is of the benefits for others. And it's also of a benefit for yourself, because once you have submitted something to an upstream project or so, then part of the maintenance actually is done inside of that upstream project too. And then the third step, of course, is if you say, well, I have a very specific need, I have an open source project, or I have a project, but it's not really covered by any other open source project, so I want to launch my own open source project. And I want to create a community around it, and this is also what has happened. One example, well, you have heard it yesterday, is about the Open Mama project, which is another Open Linux Foundation open source collaboration project, where the New York Stock Exchange technology company went out and said, well, we created this software, but it's for the broader benefit of many, and we want to open source it, and we want to basically enable a community around it. Next thing is certainly also education. I talked about this right now with the collaboration of contributing to open source project, but also around open source licensing and compliance. Of course, open source has a lot of different licenses, and you need to stay compliant with these licenses. Eventually, you're also sourcing from suppliers. You need to do supply chain management, and there are, of course, other talks. Today, later on, we will have a very interesting panel discussion about open source licensing, and there's also presentations here today about the SPDX license exchange format and others. All right. What is the idea or the concept really behind automotive-grade Linux? It is really about really being developer-oriented, rapid prototyping, and jump-starting engineering. That's why we also call our reference distribution or commonly dub it or name it, the Fedora or Debian of automotive Linux. And if you're familiar with Linux distributions, you know that Debian and Fedora are these cutting-edge developer distributions. They put the latest Linux and open source technologies in there. They integrate it. And it's really a good way for developers and engineers to experience some of the latest and greatest technologies around Linux and open source. And the Automotive Grade Linux reference distribution seeks to do exactly that. So we want to integrate latest and greatest technologies that are relevant to the automotive industry. And put this all together in a package so that developers can easily get started with it. And that comes, of course, with these images, with source code downloads, as well as documentation to do that. Upstream focused. The idea is never ever to reinvent really the wheel if there is an upstream project available. And it provides and has a lot of provides the necessary features or so. But there may be enhancements or so, then Automotive Grade Linux and the companies and contributors working with it would make contributions to those upstream projects. Then also, of course, eventually provide upstream projects, like really our user interface or so, our HTML5 framework. That could be an upstream project, and others, as well as serve as an upstream project itself, so that others can use, excuse me, what Automotive Grade Linux is putting together, such as the reference distribution. The reference distribution, of course, is not meant to be production ready, but people can use it and kind of derive production ready production systems from it. Of course, automotive focused, all the core components that meet the needs of the automotive industry, putting things in there, developing, or that could be new features or can just be kind of optimization things, such as, okay, how do you do a fast boot with Linux so that you can show real-time images from cameras connected to the system within 2 to 3 seconds from startup, which is what you want to have for backup cameras and surround view cameras when you're driving your car out of a parking spot. Other things are, excuse me, like how do you lay out a file system correctly for an embedded device that has to live in a vehicle for maybe 10 years or eventually longer, so that you do not wear out your solid state devices. So how do you optimize and put things into read-only sections so that you don't, or your log files or many Linux components or frequently write temporary files to disk. How do you do this without really wearing out the file system? Or maybe you don't have to really directly write to the SSD, but you have an overlay, sort of a RAM disk or something like that to do that. It's really also really about addressing and close those technology gaps. Okay. This is structure, how it looks. So the project is hosted by the Linux Foundation. Our Linux Foundation provides the infrastructure for it, like we do it with many of these collaboration projects that we have. Linux Foundation, of course, is a neutral body. We don't have a stake in it, but we do provide these services to companies who are interested. And so HGL is one of these Linux Foundation collaboration projects. The work group is structured in a steering committee. Steering committee, these are corporate members, companies who have a stake in Automotive Grade Linux, who want to actively drive the development, set the directions. There's a steering committee coordinator. That's what I'm doing right now. And then we have a set of expert groups that address certain domains and focus on those. And we'll go into expert groups in a little bit. And then there can be contributors and resources from many different areas. Thank you. For open source community, of course, companies, academia, individual contributors. Everyone really interested in driving adoption of Linux and open source forward in the automotive industry, or interested just in playing around with it. And that's one of the things that we enable. From playing around, a lot of new interesting things can be derived and come up. Steering committee members, these are the HEL stakeholders, the companies who have a vested interest in it. They provide their expertise, guidance to advance HEL's missions, goals. They lead the expert groups, and they contribute really actively to HEL with resources, requirements, specifications, implementation, test, and documentation. While code in open source projects is always kind of at the center, of course, there's a lot of different things that can be done and can be contributed. And if somebody just downloads the image and puts it on a system, maybe on a different system, and says, well, I tried this image on a different piece of hardware, and this worked and that worked, that's really valuable feedback, and it's a valuable contribution. And of course, if that's all documented, that helps moving the cause forward. Come on in, please. The expert groups, they focus on a specific domain. They really actively drive like technical or organizational area within the project. They have their domains of focus. And they're led and run by a lead, or one or multiple leads, and they are individuals who are typically employees of the steering committee members. And it's really a dedicated leadership, and everything requires leadership in some form to move things forward. The expert group, they really understand the industry goals, requirements for their domain. They seek the input and form a vision where the expert group, where they want to be, what they want to accomplish. And one of these expert groups is our reference distribution. And we have a certain set of goals that we want to achieve, such as, well, you should be able to use the reference distribution within 20 minutes from downloading. Eventually, you should be able to build the entire reference distribution from source code, from scratch to an image yourself, and other things. They also have a good understanding of the current reality, the status of Linux in respect to the industry requirements, what is required, what is needed, and how can we close the gap? How can we get there? Where are we, and what do we need? And also then identify the stakeholders. Who do we need to make things happen? And that can be people, organizations from the industry, as well as from the open source community, saying, okay, we have, maybe there is for an example, there is a Bluetooth profile that may not be implemented yet in the standard open source Linux Bluetooth stack, which is BlueC. So how can we work with the maintainers of the BlueC project to eventually close that gap, or maybe some other things that are related to the kernel. And this is also where the Linux Foundation can provide valuable resources to the entire thing because of our connections, of course, to the community and kernel community and many other communities. And then, of course, have a plan. How can we involve those stakeholders? How can we close the gaps? And how can we get there where we want to be? And, of course, execute that plan and work in action. So we had a Automotive Great Linux Steering Committee had a meeting during the LinuxCon, Embedded Linux conference in Barcelona last week, and we launched a whole set of expert groups for that, reference distribution, hardware, multimedia, over-the-air updates, and so on. That's what we thought was a good idea. So we set up all this structure, but now we really need to fill also everything with life. Automotive Linux is still a pretty new project. And really the most progress really made in terms of the reference distribution and the enablement in particular also with that demonstrator project that we just did within the last couple of weeks. And we're, of course, hoping to involve more and more people and more companies into those expert groups and say, okay, yes, we want to take a lead here. We want to do something there. And yeah, we will have a new expert group pretty soon also around vehicle to infrastructure communication and open source software stack. That complementarity, a company is also active in automotive grade Linux, will be open sourcing and inviting people to contribute to it and collaborate it, and really to also to try it out and see how it works and how can we make it better. Automotive grade Linux is really about action and getting things done. It's not really that much about standardization. Standards don't really work if you kind of sit at a table and try to dream up, oh, let's create a new standard and everybody's going to like it. It doesn't work that way. It never worked that way. Standards evolve eventually, and it's really, things evolve through action, getting something done. Ethernet evolved, somebody developed something, and it was made available, people used it, people improved on it, and eventually it was more formalized, and standardized, and standards were set. Automotive grade Linux is also not about compliance or so. There is no such thing as automotive grade Linux compliance. The reference distribution is not meant to be the blueprint of a compliance specification or so, because it doesn't really make that much sense either in this setting or so. Everybody has different requirements. Has different requirements and different ways to integrate things. You build a different head unit. Company A or OEM A builds a different head unit than OEM B, and then they also have different hardware. They need to adapt their things. They want to have a different feature set, and they want to modify it. And the reference distribution is really it's a superset of a lot of different technologies, and you may not need all of those technologies, so you can remove and customize it. So it's not like that you have to use what HEL produces. It's really something that enables you and gets you started. So what have we been doing elsewise? HEL webinars. We launched a webinar series. We have this really every month. And we had one in February. Matt Jones presented on the Jaguar Land Rover's experience in moving to Linux-based IVI systems. And in March, Mick Whelan and Osama Othman from Intel were presenting on leveraging the Tizen IVI build infrastructure, how to build packages and software with for Tizen IVI. And now upcoming in April, we will have Konstantin Kite from Complementarity talking about open source solutions for vehicle to infrastructure and vehicle to vehicle communications. And yeah, that's also an invitation. If anybody wants to present, has something interesting to present, or wants to present a webinar about technologies related or relevant for automotive and open source, we invite those. Yes.
If I missed the webinar, can I download them somewhere?
Yes, that's actually a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. We have this also always on the HEL website. There are the registrations for those webinars. You can sign up for them, and if you have missed those, you can download those, and you can download the presentation slides itself, as well as the entire video and audio feed from the webinar. So you can always come back and look at it, and yeah. All right. So we're doing also a couple of promotions here and there in the media. We had Doug Newcomb from Wired had a nice article in which automotive grade Linux was represented. Linux drives the open source car. Jim Semlin, also in Wired, had an opinion page. The next battleground for open source is your car. And then Doug also I did an interview with Doug Newcomb on automotive grade Linux more in details, and he wrote an article again for Wired, Can Open Source Solve Car Tech Problems? And of course, we strongly believe so. And other things are events. I've been representing events. I've been representing Automotive Get Linux a couple of times. I'm doing events. First time there was telematics at China in 2012. That was December 2012 in Shanghai. So we talked about Automotive Get Linux and what it's doing and why it makes sense. And there will be another event coming up, Content and Apps for Automotive in Europe, 2013 in June. And we'll have another one on connected cars in 2013, also in June in Amsterdam, where I'll be representing and talking about Automotive Get Linux. Projects. So how have the projects been doing? Demonstrator project that has been or is visible here today in vehicle, IVI, vehicle demonstration, the Land Rover LR4 in the breezeway down there, valet parking area. And this actually has been really a collaboration project between HEL companies, Feuer Lab, Symbio, Symphony Teleca. And as Matt also yesterday said, we put this together in a very short time frame just to see what can be done actually. What can be done if you really throw everything overboard of typical waterfall type of development and just embrace some open source or kind of rapid Scrum type of development and see what you can do in 3 weeks and how it works out. And we think it worked out pretty well, and it's really an excellent starting point for the Automotive Get Linux reference distribution to which we want to build to more and more. So what did we really do? We integrated the system even with the CAN bus, CAN controls. So we mocked around with the Linux CAN drivers and everything, tried to get that run on the kernel and load into the kernel and so on, and then send out messages, CAN frames to the CAN bus. We added a media player and controls for the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and it actually can control through the CAN bus the fan and the temperature in the car. And then we said, okay, we'll take it also a step further. Can we add some remote control functionality to this, so you can log into a website or eventually can use your mobile phone and change settings in your car and do things. So, and for that we also built up a cloud server in the Linux Foundation's cloud that enables that functionality. And that cloud server and all this functionality will actually also be available to collaborators to do similar things. And the way how this works, of course, it's secured. You have your own logins and things like that, so you don't control somebody else's car or so, or systems. And those downloads will be available on automotive.linuxfoundation.org and the HEL demonstrator. So together with this, we also have this now user experience contest. We said, okay, so we did something in 3 weeks, and we said, okay, let's find people out there who can do maybe much more than we could do that we could do in 3 weeks, maybe in a rather short time frame. Sorry. And enhance and improve on this even more. Or just use the entire framework and say, okay, well, I use the framework, but I throw away all the skins and the GUIs and everything, and I design my completely new thing. And that's what we're out for, we're looking for. So what can you really do with this enabler? Because going back to our mission, we wanted to enable this collaboration and say, okay, now we put something together. It's not perfect, but take it and run with it and really go out and show what can be done with this. And so we created a couple of user categories for that: best user experience, best visual appearance, best new concept or additional feature. And there will be some prizes for that, of course. We'll have 1 winner and 2 runners-up for each category, and everybody will receive a tablet PC. And the winners will also have the opportunity to work with AGL and Jaguar Land Rover on the proof of concept and really get what they have designed into this entire thing. And, well, last but not least, you get recognition. And that works for individuals as well. It works really for companies, too. For software engineers, software developers, open source is really a great way to build up your reputation. It's almost like a publicly visible resume, but not just a resume saying I did this and I did that, but here is also the proof. This is what I did because I collaborated in these projects or did this and that. And of course, for companies, a collaboration in something like automotive grade Linux is really a way to directly show expertise and show technology that the companies have developed and showcase that. There's terms and conditions at this website. And of course, there is a time frame to it. So really, the contest started yesterday, and it will end at the Automotive Linux Summit in Tokyo in Japan. Well, actually, a little bit before that, because we need some time to review everything and find the winners and runners-up. So really, what's next? Around the HAL demonstrator, reference distribution. Matt already also mentioned that yesterday. Integrate open source navigation, Navit, into it. Integrate Bluetooth telephony, automotive message broker to kind of have an abstraction layer, essentially from the middleware or from the user interface to the vehicle interfaces, so that it makes it easily portable from one car to a different car. Web API for vehicle sensors and controls. That's meant to be a broad superset, really ideally. We go out and get really input from all different OEMs and car makes and models, and see, okay, what sensors are in there, and provide standard interfaces to read those sensors, as well as standardized interfaces to issue commands or to take control. And this is supposed to be or will be aligned with the W3C Automotive Web Platform Business Group. I talked to representatives of that business group last week. And well, coincidentally or not, this business group actually will have a meeting also during the Automotive Linux Summit in Tokyo, in Japan. So I want to bring this together and also really provide HAL's input to that business group. Another thing is really a source code and build system. Really, an image gets you quite a way there, so you can work with it and play with it, but eventually need to be able to build it yourself and build it from scratch. So we want to have system builds from source code all the way to the image, and use a build system for that. And really, what else? You name it. And this afternoon we'll have an open steering committee meeting, in which we can discuss other topics and things that people are interested in and would like to address in the framework of automotive grade Linux. Okay, a couple of upcoming events. Talked about the webinar already on using open source solutions for vehicle infrastructure, vehicle-to-vehicle communication. That's presented by Constant Kite, Componentality. Thursday, April 25th. We always do 2 webinars to accommodate the different time zones around the globe. And we have one for Europe that will be at 8 a.m. Central European Summertime there. It's 4 p.m. Japanese Standard Time, and well, for the US. For me, unfortunately, it will be at midnight. So. And then we'll have another one for the US at 6 p.m. European Standard Time, and that will be then 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Registration will be available shortly on automotive.linuxfoundation.org/webinars, so you can sign up for it there. And then, of course, we'll have the Automotive Linux Summit 2013 in spring. It's a 2-day event, May 27 and May 28. It's co-located with LinuxCon Japan, and we have a great lineup of speakers already, and good keynotes, and about 34 or 35 breakout sessions. The program will be published this week on our website too. And what else? Yeah, there also will be a hands-on lab on build system, on the Tizen IVI build system too, if you're interested in that. And yeah, thank you so much. And your